Welcome back, boys and some girls. Today we are going to focus on what happened in the village of Jova, as well as the small storylines you can find in the village of Jova as well as around the village of Jova. Obviously this is going to include very heavy spoilers for the entirety of the game, so you have been warned. Let's begin. The overall story of Jova is about the Sabinian army taking over the village, pillaging it during the military campaign, and preparing it to house more Sabinian refugees from other places. The ON, who were helping the locals, began the evacuation once they learned this offensive is going to be happening in Jova. However, a few soldiers actually decided to stay behind and help the locals as much as they actually could before evacuating. And we're gonna meet them throughout our playthrough, and we can also help them by doing small deeds. Meanwhile, the Sabinian army begins to cleanse the village of its Palomis inhabitants, because before their arrival, the Palomis villagers had actually hung some Sabinian family members on the big tree in the central hill of the map. And this was supposedly done as retaliation for similar events that the Sabinian did in other villages. So you see where this is going? This is like an infinite cycle. The Sabinian also loot everything of value from the homes and even from the abbey. And that's the big picture of what happened in Jova in general. And now let's dive a little bit deeper, starting with my favorite NPC, Rebecca. Rebecca is a child that is living in one of the first line houses, meaning it was the first one to actually suffer from artillery fire. Her entire family died from an artillery shell, according to her at least. But if you inspect the house, the direction of the fire doesn't quite add up, because we know where the artillery camp was. It kind of looks like multiple smaller impacts instead of one direct hit to the house. So I assume they actually died from the fragments and not from one big shell hitting all of them together. Rebecca survived because she was actually in her treehouse playing, which luckily wasn't damaged at all. She loved her family dearly, especially her little brother, and you can see this because when you go up to the attic, you see her clinging onto a teddy bear, which was her brother. And you can tell it's her brother because if you check out the pictures around the house, you can see a little boy holding it. However, it's not all tragedy, because through the deed system you can actually help Rebecca and her only surviving relative, Uncle Jaffer, which is the local priest, reach a safe place called Lake Sinon. She leaves the teddy bear actually behind when she goes to the lake. I think at least it's to indicate that she's kind of expected it and accepted it that her brother died. There are also multiple NPCs that can end up in Lake Sinon if you complete all of the requests, but I failed in some of them in my first run, and hopefully I will actually manage to do it in the next one. We're going to continue going through the stories in a clockwise fashion throughout the entire village, skipping the obviously completely ruined houses with no apparent story to them. Next, we come to another extremely sad case. War doesn't have much happiness, sadly. This story is about a small family, mom, dad and daughter. At first you can see what happened to the mother and daughter. I'm just gonna show you the clip. It's kind of horrifying. Later on, in the Jelgin map, you can also find the father actually stuck between the rocks under the church. He stayed behind hunting for treasure, probably to provide for his family, and he pays for it. He asks you to give the shoes he brought as a surprise to his daughter. Thankfully, the game doesn't let you crush him by actually revealing the truth. He dies believing that his family is actually safe and fine. Oh, and a weird detail here that has nothing to do with, I think it's like a fourth wall breaker here. The house layout makes no sense. There only is one bedroom, only for the child. There's nothing for the parents. Further clockwise, there are also some ruined houses and a locked garage. Hopefully, the owners actually managed to escape in time. The next story actually showed us the Sabinian side. While the father was out of town, a mob of Palomis villagers, including teachers and regular citizens, not just hardened soldiers, hanged his family and other people on the tree. They were driven by rage over a previous massacre, like I said at the beginning. When you go to the house, you find the father at home drinking his life away. You can help him get a small measure of closure by giving him actually his son's teddy bear. He in return gives you an item that I think ties into another deed, but I haven't completed it in game yet. But I think I know what to do, so we'll do this in another playthrough probably. But keep this in mind because this is gonna come back to us later on. In his basement we actually find a tunnel leading to an old lady caring for a baby, but she's run out of food. Sadly, I could not complete this deed because I didn't find the food for the baby and the baby died. She just stays there in the tunnel and she's probably gonna die there. My assumption is if you actually succeed, they're going to join Rebecca and Jaffer at Lake Sinon, and then you're gonna recreate like a replacement family for her. You're gonna have the uncle as her father, the grandma as her mother, and the baby as her brother, because that's a male boy. So My fault. I failed this turn, so again, maybe next time. Moving on, you're going to see some closed shops, artillery positions, and then the consequences of the mob's attack. When the civilian soldiers actually took over, they rounded up anyone who was involved and executed them behind the building. Keep this one in your memory too, this is gonna come back later. Next actually is our house, the player's house, Remy's house, his childhood house. Since this ties into the main story, I'm gonna skip this for now because this is a whole thing on its own. Not far from there you can also find Uncle Jaffa, Rebecca's uncle, tied to a pole in a torturous sit-to-choke position, because eventually he's gonna get tired and he's going to choke. You can save him, and if you help Rebecca, you'll later see them both again, but I kind of wonder now what is gonna happen if you actually ignore the request. Are they going to die, both of them? Now, back to the Sabinian family. Remember the teacher that was involved in the mob? As a punishment, the soldiers are now abusing her every single night. The environment just jumps at you. Talking to her, it's kind of clear that she regrets her actions, though it's unclear if she is regretting because it's real remorse, or she's just fearing what happened to her since then. Sadly, in my playthrough, I didn't realize I could actually give her an item, and she ended her own life. The Sabinian grieving father that actually gave us a photo, he gave us an item. That item was the classroom photo of her and the children. I suspect that if I gave it to her, she would actually change her fate and would not end herself. I'm gonna test this in my next run. Jova also has a few smaller stories, freeing a dog that is named Max, whose owners actually escaped to Visahil, and if you go free Max, you'll also be able to reunite with him later on in the final map in Lake Sinan. But if you give the collar to the owner, he is actually going to be quite happy and say thank you. So go do that. The musician, there's a palomist that is right in the entrance to the village that is being forced to actually play Sabinian music for the captain of the soldiers. He just sits there and plays music, and he actually asks you to give him more sheets of music so he can play more, because if he doesn't, then the guy is gonna kill him. But I actually completed this one, and later on when the captain actually leaves because the story progresses, the musician disappeared. There is no corpse, so it probably escapes. That's it for most of the stories inside of Jova. There's going to be a little bit more, but it's not interesting because it's mostly quests to give you items. There is no real story to them. Outside of Jova, we can find 4 actually interesting encounters. Number 1, we can find a crazy man with a camera hiding behind a boulder near the bridge, and if you get him his lens, he's going to actually help you solve a nearby puzzle, which is quite useful, despite him looking like a mad crazy person. Number 2, you can find 2 ON members hiding in the tunnels behind one of the monuments on an island. They actually need medicine and a radio, and if you help them both, they're going back to the ON outpost inside of Jova. Number 3, you can find a tunnel with a wrecked truck. Everything is on fire and plenty of enemies blocking your access to 2 things. Number 1, the blacksmith, which is going to be a main mission you have to progress to. And number 2, you also find there an injured ON lieutenant named Ro. If you save her, it leads to another quest later where she actually asks you to give her daughter's photo from the wreck back in the tunnel. And finally, this one is when you actually close the time loop. You're going to see a pretty sad story about soldiers actually killing family, or I guess a couple that was trying to run away. You will see this once you end up all the time loops. There's going to be something pretty sad in all of them. Some of them are more sad and more bold than the other ones. I thought it was worth mentioning this one. Those are the stories in and around Jova. Obviously there's more very small details, deeds and puzzles, but those are the ones that stood out to me the most and the most interesting ones. If you'd like to see me cover any other maps in the same way, please let me know. I'm planning to dig into them anyway because I really enjoyed the story and the lore. But that's gonna be it. Hope you enjoyed this one. If you did, thank you. If you didn't, let me know why so I can improve it. And keep safe, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye bye.